Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Aravaipa Rides podcast. This is Aaron, your race director here, and today I have Truman Shoaff coming all the way down to us from Flagstaff, Arizona.
Hello.
Truman, talk to me. We'll talk about your work in a little bit, but let's just get a little bit to know you a little bit more. I'm sorry, I'm flubbing over my words here in the first minute. Let's get to know you a little bit more. You're a mountain biker too, so talk to me about how you kind of found the sport yourself, and maybe just a little bit just about your background.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
First off, I grew up in Flagstaff, born and raised.
Very cool.
I've been riding bikes since I was since I could ride, 5 or 6 years old, and my bike was my main mode of transportation all the way until I turned 16 and got a license, and it kind of ruined it for me. But mountain biking specifically, it took me a while to get into. I think I got my first mountain bike. I was working for a company called Breckenridge Outdoor Education Center in Breckenridge, doing adaptive stuff, like we'll talk about soon.
Sure.
And I bought my first bike there as like a demo bike from a shop, and learned, kind of just went out and biked in Breckenridge. It was a great place to learn, and lots of climbing and descending, and got into it from there. Before that, I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy for 5 years as an elevator mechanic, and I guess that's kind of the short story of me.
Very good. What does a elevator mechanic's job day to day look like in the Navy? Were you on board ship? Was it are we talking like the big aircraft aircraft carriers?
Not the aircraft elevators, but
Gotcha.
the weapons elevators. So I worked on the elevators that carried the bombs, missiles, and rockets to the flight deck, and it was all just preventative maintenance. If we were lucky, and corrective maintenance if we were not. So a lot of hydraulic cylinder maintenance, big greasy wire ropes, changing door gaskets, all sorts of stuff. Very small spaces.
Right.
It was a good time. Did 2 deployments out to Persian Gulf and the South China Sea. And, just kind of floated around, and it was a good time.
What ship or ships were you on?
I was on the Stennis, the John C. Stennis. It was out of Bremerton, Washington.
Very nice.
Kind of near Seattle.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll throw another one at you. What was your favorite port of call in all that time?
Oh man,
Or maybe a couple top 3.
Yeah, I mean, Thailand was really fun.
Okay.
I had a great time in Thailand. I've got to go to Dubai 3 times.
Nice.
And the architecture there is really awesome. And then I got to ski indoors at one of their malls.
Oh yeah.
And being in the desert, that was kind of cool to go skiing.
Right.
Singapore is also really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you were on ship. How out of the 5 years, how much time were you on the ship
I
for?
was probably on a ship for like a solid at least 2 years, maybe a little bit longer. I did an 8-month deployment, a 6-month deployment, and then a bunch of stuff in between that, just like training missions, month at a time, 2 months at a time. And then I had a year where we were dry docked, so our whole ship was taken out of the water to do maintenance.
Gotcha.
And that was a nice year to be at home, so that was cool. Yeah.
Where was the dry dock?
That was also in Bremerton.
It is in Bremerton.
We were like right next door. It's called Banger or something, but the shipyard is right there as well. So I didn't have to move or anything.
Nice. Nice. All right, so we'll get back into the mountain biking because I don't know anything about aircraft carriers. Not enough to keep a conversation going.
Me neither, honestly.
Been on one actually. The John F. Kennedy used to come to do like a civilian. I don't know what they call them, but like kind of civilian marketing tours. Like that, and you go on tours. And I think with the Boy Scouts, we went 1 year, and then we came back a couple years later, same ship, and then and we got on board just as a group. So walked around the deck a couple of times on one, but that's about the extent of the knowledge that I haven't seen on television or in a movie. So you found mountain biking a little bit later on in life. Flagstaff though is kind of a, especially around here, kind of a local mecca for it. I mean, tons and tons of trails, and growing all the time. So I don't know what the trail system was like as you were growing up and learning it, but I guess maybe tell us what the trail system was like. Where did you first start riding? What were your favorite rides back then when you first got started?
Yeah, like I really wasn't mountain biking in Flagstaff, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
like I lived in Kachina, and there's a trail called Highlands Trail. It takes you from the wetlands out in Kachina to the end of 89A. You cross over, and then you can get to the Fort Hill area where Big Woody is.
Yeah. Okay.
And I didn't know about that until I got back from the Navy.
Okay.
Like I would used to ride my bike on like, a couple miles out of the way to get on Old Munns Highway.
Yeah.
And then go into town from there, and just no one told me about this perfect trail that we had. And then, yeah, when I got back into town for college after being in the Navy, was continuing to mountain bike, and just, Fort Tuthill is close to my house, so I bike there a lot. Sure. And then, like Fisher Point, Skunk Canyon, that area, and of course Schultz. Whole Schultz area is awesome and has been improved a lot since I was a kid. Yeah, they've done a lot of work in the last couple of years. Really grow in that area, so it's been really cool to watch.
Let's check it out.
Yeah,
very cool. The big public FUTS system, not so much. I mean, you can mountain bike on it, but it's not the exciting kind of mountain biking, that's for sure, right? That's certainly grown quite a bit to bring kind of anybody into biking. Your weekend warriors. They used to call them like the crossover kind of hybrid. It was kind of, now it's sort of like a gravel, although it wasn't the gravel configuration that you see on bikes today. It was kind of more of a cross between a mountain bike and I guess your Sony, your 10-speed. I can't remember. I don't know why I said Sony.
Surly, Mandy.
But yeah, it's kind of like the one that you might see again when I was growing up. When you were growing up too, you might see like your mother or grandmother on. It had like the handlebars out like this and a wider seat. A little bit wider tires than your average 10-speed, but you could go on dirt with it. Basically, is what I'm trying to say, right? So that really kind of those trails started coming up and really bringing that crowd. I mean, like anybody could get out and ride, right? Absolutely. It wasn't just the hardcore bikers, the hardcore runners and hikers who hit those trails as well. So Flagstaff's really kind of come a long way in making it available for everybody.
Yeah.
I know I asked the question as before, but are those still those areas that you talked, Schultz, Tuttle, are those still your favorite areas to go, or that?
Yeah. Those are kind of the areas. Like, there's some other stuff, but those are the areas to bike, and they're growing more trails.
Yeah.
Before we started recording, we were talking about this new Observatory Mesa area, so that's going to be exciting as that comes to fruition. And I also really like going to Prescott, and the new Bean Peaks area is awesome to bike in.
I hit Beans Peak last year, one time last summer. That was real fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good stuff. All accessible out there.
Yep. Yeah, hoping that they other communities kind of see that and can grow it as well, do their own rather, because we don't have a whole lot of like a gravity flow kind of stuff like Beans is, and that was pretty fun, and it's available. I mean, there's obviously plenty of hills around here that we could get some good ones in that aren't too crazy for climbing up, but would give you a good ride down and get you to, for those who don't want to do just like the 20, 30, 50 mile crazy ride out into the wilderness and back, you can kind of stay contained in a few dozen acres and do these things. So hoping we can see some more like that. I do like Beans Peak as well. All right, I wanted to switch. So we talked a bit about it, or we hinted at your job. But you work up in Flagstaff for High Country Adaptive Sports.
High Country Adaptive Sports, yeah.
I said county again.
It's okay. It's like Aravaipa.
I know, right?
We can all get names wrong.
High Country Adaptive Sports. Tell us a little bit about your job over there. What High Country does.
Yeah, totally. So I'm the programs director for High Country Adaptive Sports. We specialize in outdoor recreation. So Caitlin and Phil came on the podcast and talked about it a lot a while ago. But we started as a ski program. So we're up at Snow Bowl in the wintertime providing adaptive ski lessons, snowboard. We've got a bunch of sit skis. We have really fancy electronic skis.
Cool.
And then in the winter and then in the summer we're doing kayaking, mountain biking, which we're here to talk about today, rock climbing, and then we also have like some lower pace like social gathering events called a discovery camp. That's new last year, and that we're making bigger this year. So
cool.
Yeah.
For those people who are listening or watching and may have seen Caitlin and Phil's podcast, Ability 360 is where Caitlin works down here.
Correct. Yep.
Essentially the same kind of thing, or is there a difference between what the two organizations?
Yeah, they're same, but like 360 Outdoors is what Caitlin manages, and and they have bikes and they do rides.
Right.
But 360 is also just like this huge organization for the disability community, and I guess I'll let everybody know the word adaptive when we're talking about that is recreation to adapt for people with disabilities. Just because adaptive, some people are like, what does that even mean?
Right.
So, so they do like caregiver services and training. They have this huge fitness center.
Yeah.
They will help get ramps and rails and make your home adaptable if you have a disability,
Sure.
and then a whole bunch of other stuff. So.
Okay.
They do, like, all we do is the fun recreation. Stuff, and Caitlin gets to do that mostly. And then there's also, like, they've got teams and team sports and all sorts of stuff. So they're just a lot bigger, kind of like what we're shooting for in the future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, Caitlin took me on a tour of the facility a couple of months after they came on the podcast, and it was amazing. I just blown away by all the different things they had there. I mean, the gym was top notch. The pool was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that they had. So that's cool. Okay. Back to high country then. So you're programs director for any of the sports that are happening, right?
Correct,
so not just mountain biking.
Not just mountain biking. Yeah, we run. We've got a few other programs: the kayaking, rock climbing, discovery camp for the summer, that kind of stuff. And then we started our mountain bike race team last year. So this will be our second year with the race team.
Very nice. Very nice. So when I met you was more than last year. It was a couple of years ago now at White Mountains.
Yes.
A couple races ago. The team that you were with, was that the ability team or was that a different one?
So that was, we were already, we've been racing for more than since last year, but last year was like the first year as an official race team.
Gotcha.
Whereas before we're all just kind of like figuring this out, seeing how race directors like yourself and others like Epic Rides are receiving us. Sure. And it's been nothing but support. So it's been really awesome to get adaptive riders in races, and it's a lot easier to do that with a race that already exists than to start our own. So it's been great to have support of folks like you coming in and asking how we can make this work and getting more butts and bikes as the episode.
One of Phil's favorite quotes, I think, right?
Yeah.
You're a mountain biker when you're doing all these other excursions that aren't mountain biking. I guess maybe I should rephrase that. What's your favorite? Do you lean towards mountain biking because you bike yourself, or do you actually like taking out the excursions and getting a sense of something else?
Yeah, I do like it all. Mountain biking is my favorite because that's something I do in my free time, and so being able to share that with people and just like do what I do for fun as my job is a pretty cool perk. But every time I go get in a kayak with someone, it's great just sitting there and relaxing in a boat. I'd say climbing is my least favorite only because I don't like looking up so much, but I still love it. Like all of it is just really cool. All the experiences are great, getting people together, and like solving puzzles of how to make things work for people, and taking away barriers.
Sure.
So it's great.
Did you have to get any let's just say certifications, whitewater guide, to getting on the kayaks and stuff, just as I mean, there's guides who do this, year long as well, not just for adaptive sports. Did you have to get one of those certifications too, in addition to your knowledge of how the adaptive sport would work, or?
No. So I have an adaptive instructor mountain bike certification.
Okay.
I've got a lot of certs for skiing.
Yep.
And then I am a licensed raft guide in Colorado.
Okay.
But we're just doing flat water with kayaking. So we're not like, we have done a couple things on the Verde River, but just like small stuff. We're not doing big rapids in the canyon yet or anything like that. So no big certs for that. There is like an adaptive paddling certification you can get, but we did a good training, so we didn't do that certification route, but there is one for that. But yeah, a lot of it is just from personal experience and getting trained with other programs. And and then there's a lot of like kind of just learn from working with people, like the etiquette side of things and how people want to be referred to and helped. And it's just like with anybody, right? We all have our certain ways of where we need help and where we don't. And just kind of like talking to people and figuring out what they want.
Cool. How did you find this line of work? I mean, coming out of the Navy, we didn't talk about what you did, so maybe it was college or something like that. We didn't really talk about what you went to college for.
Yeah, sorry, I'm really bad at introducing myself.
It's quite all right. But yeah, so what got you into this line of work?
Yeah, good question. So after the Navy, I started school at NAU, Parks and Recreation Management degree.
Okay.
And one of the classes in there was an inclusive recreation class.
Gotcha.
and I was already working up at Snowbowl in the rental shop, just like teching skis for people, and learned about the program kind of a bit before that class started and thought it was cool. And then once I had to go do it for a class, I was like, oh, that's perfect. I'll go do it with that. And went up to the executive director at the time, the founder, and was like, hey, I'd like to help with this. He's like, sick, go help that person. And just like, I just went and helped someone and fell in love with it. And, fortunate enough to not need to work because the GI Bill was paying for school and giving me a stipend. And so I just volunteered for the organization the next winter, got a season pass for it. And, I was working with vet groups and just like learning all the adaptive ropes and all that stuff. And that led to that internship in Breckenridge with a much bigger adaptive organization that had been around for 40 years. Also a ski program, but they also had a summer program. So that's where I learned river trips, raft guide certification. They have a high ropes course that's wheelchair accessible. Wow. They've got this whole big cabin that's accessible. And they just do a whole bunch of like camps at that cabin, and they're right on a reservoir, so they can kayak right there. So that's how I got into it. And like the coolest part was when I got out of the Navy, it was like I wasn't depressed, but I was like just kind of just like neutral. I had been told where to go, what to do, what to wear for 5 years, and then nothing. And so luckily I started school right away, so I was going to school, but then that was it. I would just go to school, come home, do my homework, and watch TV. And so this really like showed me my passion and brought me back to my full self. The people I met and the skills that I learned, and all of it was just really brought me back. So
very cool.
That's how I got into it.
You mentioned some veteran groups. Did that kind of help get you into it too, like working with people that not necessarily that you served with, but people that you served with, quote unquote, in the greater sense of service? Seeing some of these guys who came back from combat or from whatever befell them in any kind of an accident or whatnot, and working with guys that you might have been shoulder to shoulder with, kind of.
I did like I do like to make sure everybody knows that I was on that ship, nowhere near combat or anything like that. And so,
I was not trying to imply.
No, I know, but I think some people can be real sticklers about it. So true. I do want that to be known. But yes, like it was really great to connect with vets and kind of like even though I wasn't in that same situation, like just being in the military, there's just that difference. There's that different camaraderie. There's it's just like if you went to boot camp, what that's like. It's just like there's a difference. And so it's really cool to be able to connect with those folks and hear them say like, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing when I got out too. And I was like, oh great, okay, I'm not alone in that.
Sure.
And then that really led me to the other stuff in the adaptive sports world and rec therapy. And it was awesome. It did really just bring me back and to my full self, and made me passionate again and motivated. And I've kind of just been hyper focused on it for the past 9 years since. And so
that's great. That's fantastic. I think all of us can probably imagine in our head what an excursion might look like. We've probably seen or been on one of our own, whitewater rafting, you say, or kayaking, going out and with biking and stuff like that. What do the downtimes look like? Is it literally just a lot of office work and pushing papers, or do you have do you get out and scout? Do you get out and do other things outdoors that kind of set you up for the excursion later?
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes. Like a fun trip can also be a scout trip for something, right? Like if we're going with friends or myself or, just like doing it for fun, we can be like, hey, would this work for an adaptive experience? And just kind of decide that. I kind of forgot the rest of your question there.
Well, just like what's the day-to-day like?
Oh,
it's not the outdoor excursion if you're not leading.
Totally. Definitely lots of emails and program planning, finding dates, looking at routes, filling out special use permits and all of that fun stuff. But it really is a nice balance. Like I get to be out a lot. I get to do a lot outdoors, and my office time is necessary, but usually goes pretty quick once I sit down and do it. And I have a really good balance of office and the field work.
Yeah. There you go. That's a good way. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
I just had a question that flew right through my before it flew out again. Where are some of the favorite places that you've gone? Where do you go outside the state, or is it all kind of Flagstaff local?
So the adaptive sports world is pretty cool. It's pretty small, but there's some really cool events that once you get certified in, like skiing and biking, that you get to do. So every year I get to go to Breckenridge for a week for Ski Spectacular. It's a huge adaptive ski event. Sorry, bikers that were talking about skiing stuff.
They'll get over it.
Yeah.
We'll bring it back.
Yeah, we'll bring it all. It'll all come back around. And that, like, if you teach, they put you up in a nice condo, and then you teach for the week. You get to meet people. Like, I work with this group Blesma. It's like British veterans with limb loss in some form. So that could be like a spinal cord injury with affected legs, or a classic limb loss from a mine, or whatever form of combat they were in.
Sure.
And I've gotten to ski with them the last couple of years. So they bring a crew over from London, and that's really cool to experience. And then going back to the veterans thing, every March in Aspen Snowmass, Colorado, I get to go ski with vets for a week. Same deal. They put you up in a cabin, or a ski in, ski out condo.
Nice.
And that one's really cool. There's a race in Utah that I've gone to for the past 3 years for a really fancy ski called a tetra ski. So it's controlled with either your breath or a joystick. So high level spinal cord injuries, complex disabilities, those folks are racing competitively in that race. And so that's pretty cool. And then bringing it back to biking, there's a really fun event. There's actually a lot going on now. Sea Otter Classic has a really big adaptive.
Pretty soon.
Yeah, pretty soon, or it might have already happened. I don't know. And so they've got a lot of adaptive riders that are going there. Whiteahoe just ended, I believe. That was a big mountain bike event, and they had a huge adaptive presence. The adaptive programs up there are actually continuing the event as an adaptive event. And then Crested Butte, Colorado has the Adaptive Mountain Bike World Championships. Smaller than it sounds, but still a pretty fun race. A bunch of people come from all over for that. So
very cool.
Lots of cool experiences being in the adaptive world, and it's just kind of about saying yes. Bentonville, I got to go to Bentonville, Arkansas, mountain bike there with an adaptive crew.
True mecca right now, of
absolutely,
in general, right?
Yep, and especially for the adaptive bikes, all those trails were machine made beautifully, and the bikes work really great on them too.
Very, very nice. You were saying it's a kind of a small community, and as I've learned a little bit more about it in the last year or so since meeting you and meeting a few other people within your and Caitlin's organization, seeing not only the community of the disabled community in general, but then of course there's a community that's active in this sense that really wants to go on who wants to go skiing. I mean, not everybody wants to get on a bike or go skiing or go kayaking or whatnot. And then on top of it, from my standpoint of the industry, is the racing, again, even just a smaller, right? So, I might want to get on a bike and go for, one of your excursions and just go out with friends, but racing maybe isn't. And that's, I guess, all the communities,
totally.
Are the same way, racers. There's a lot more mountain bikers than there are mountain bike racers, just like there's a lot more runners than there are, marathon racers and that kind of stuff too. So always a little bit smaller. How do you get the word out about your, just your adventures, the activities that you have to bring new people in from the community?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of our stuff is like word of mouth. We'll do Facebook ads and Instagram ads. We have a newsletter that our executive director sends out. But you already have to be following us to get that stuff, right?
Sure.
So we'll get stuff off our reels every once in a while. But a lot of it is word of mouth and just, like people saying hey, I had a really good time with these folks. If you want to go do it too, that's the place to do it. Flagstaff, we're the only one. So, and it's a pretty good tourist community. And so we've had people just look us up that are driving through to go for a bike ride or to come ski in. And so we're Googleable. And then we've just been working really hard to reconnect with our community and let people know that we're there. We spent a lot of time focusing on the Phoenix Valley area because that's where the very large population of folks with disability is. And it's less in Flagstaff, but we want to be more ingrained in the community. And so people know when they come there, a lot of folks travel through there to go to the Grand Canyon, to do drive to California, all the stuff. And so making sure people know that we're there by doing stuff like this. And so for me, it's just about connecting with people and then making sure they know that whether it's my organization or Caitlin's or anyone else's, that, adaptive sports and recreation is available in most places. And it's like just getting better and better. And, it can be hard sometimes still to get out there. It's like clearly not as easy as us going and jumping on our bike, but that's kind of what I'm striving for, to make it to where if someone wants to go out on a ride, it can be pretty easy. And so just kind of keep talking to people and doing things like this and getting the word out and letting people know.
And I presume you probably have a fleet of bikes, a fleet of skis, like you provide the equipment for anyone who may not have it on their own at this point.
I remember watching the episode with Kate and Phil, and we were the only ones that let people use our bikes for races. And it's like tough to say that we might not be able to keep doing that. Like the bikes just don't last, but we really want people to be able to get on bikes and ride. And so it's definitely not out of the question. But yes, we do have a fleet of bikes. We do big group rides. And then if it works out to where someone really wants to race, we'll help make that happen for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I imagine too, there's a good deal of activism that comes along with this job. What kind of activities are you involved with right now that might involve some of the just activism for disabled sports and adaptive sports?
Yeah, I hesitate to call myself an activist because I think most of my job is just related to recreation. And so I see it as like, I have clients that I want to be able to recreate and sell stuff to, but I do really enjoy the advocacy side when I have space for it. And so I'm working on a lot of trail initiatives. And so I've worked with the Arizona Trails Commission. I went to a big conference last summer, and just really showing people adaptive bikes and people that are building trails and funding trails that like this should be included. And everybody's really supportive of that, and like getting that on their agendas and their mission statements and their master plans is like ensuring that as new trails are being built, they are accessible to a certain standard. And like we've talked about, it's hard to decide what that standard is. And so kind of talking about what that even looks like and which bikes and to what level, because like not everything is going to be accessible, right? Like I think Caitlin even talked about that. Like we don't need every single thing to be a paved sidewalk. Oh, sorry.
There you go.
We need, but yeah, like there just needs to be like a decent amount, right? Like where you go should have something for everybody to do.
Alternatives, opportunity, that sort of thing.
And,
go ahead.
And then like there's one in Flagstaff, the Greater Observatory Mesa project, helping. I mean, I'm not really doing much. I just kind of spoke and told people, and they were already excited to put in some adaptive trails, but then just asking a question of like, why can't all the trails be 36 inches wide instead of 24 inches wide? They don't need to be 48 inches wide, but finding that middle ground, and they were very open to that. And so, yeah, that stuff is pretty aligned with my work. And I go to, a lot of like meetings and work with the local commissions and stuff like that, just kind of to give the perspective of what I've seen working with people.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
As a program director, are you meeting the clients when they're coming in for the first time, maybe not really sure they want to get involved with this sort of thing, maybe too much for them? Is there a chance that you have to like, not to say talk them into it, but explain to them that they can do it? Is that part of your job as well?
Yeah, I think like I try to do in services at hospitals, and there's a big expo in Scottsdale called the Abilities Expo. And so when I get those times to like be in like a expo area where there's like lots of people, having the equipment there is super important to show people like this is what you can ride it really well, and you can do a lot on it. Like even if you have bad grip or something, like there's ways to adapt it all, right? And so, yeah, like I do have to talk people into it sometimes. I think skiing is the biggest one. Mountain biking is pretty close next to it. Because like you said, not everyone wants to ride a bike. Not everyone wants to race. Not everyone wants to ride a mountain bike. Not everyone wants to ski. But I think people are very intimidated by a lot of the times. And then just showing like, hey, we can do really slow ride. We can go crazy. Like whatever you want to do, like we can match your level of how much adventure you want to have.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so, yeah, sometimes it's, convincing parents that they can do this safely.
Yeah.
It's convincing themselves, like, yes, you can get in this bike, you can ride this trail, you can go over that log, sometimes it is convincing. And like we all have like our perceived boundaries and barriers that we put on ourselves.
Yep.
And so that's a very easy thing to do if you in your 40s and you've been in a wheelchair your whole life and like no one's ever talked to you about adaptive sports, and then
something new.
Yeah, then you can see it and be like, yep, you can do this.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I think we probably talked about it with Caitlin, but you'll have to, and I think I even know the answer to the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just as it's, it's been 10 months or so. And, you're just, because you're just talking about, there's obviously all different levels of disability.
Yeah.
Even within the same injury, right? Different levels you're talking about. How adaptive can you, and that's not the right word because it's all that we're all talking about, but how adaptive can you make the bikes? I guess we'll stick to the bikes because I know the different equipment, skis and kayaks and whatnot, but we'll keep it just the one. For someone you said, who maybe doesn't have the stronger grip, or someone who maybe doesn't have the use of their hands at all. So how can you like switch over the equipment to be able to be used by as many people as possible? Yeah,
good question. I think a lot of there's bikes that are being made more adaptive. So there's bikes with like the brake on the handlebars instead of having to squeeze.
Sure.
So I think that's a big part.
Yep.
There's like these quad grips that have like a pin underneath their hands, and so they can just drop their hand to brake. So like being able to brake and steer is obviously the most important pieces of all this, right? The e-assist, as long as we can get them on a button, they can propel themselves.
Yeah.
But braking and stopping is a big deal. We can use like Velcro hand guards to kind of like help keep their hands on.
Okay.
And then the coolest thing is the same people that make that fancy ski I was telling you about.
Yeah.
There's this Trails and the University of Utah at the Craig H. Nielsen Rehab Hospital in Utah. So they created that Tetra ski, and they're also creating a bike.
Okay.
So they're creating a bike that's controlled with that joystick or sip and puff.
Wow.
That can be taken on all the trails that we ride
Yeah.
by someone with a high-level spinal cord injury.
Yep.
I think there'll be some sort of instructor override that is played, which will be interesting while riding a bike.
Sure.
But I have an override while I'm skiing with that electric ski.
Okay.
And so it'll take lots of training, but the technology is catching up to the point where those folks that can't independently bike right now, they might go into a tandem bike or get more of a ride than getting to go ride themselves, but that's changing. And so it's just about technology catching up and having you put some effort into getting us at your race, and there's 7 of us, right? And it's important to remember that it's going to be small numbers until we can really show that this is doable and get more people there, because travel is tough for folks with disabilities, and these bikes are huge and big and hard to travel with, and so it just takes that patience and welcomeness for even a small crew, because it's big, it's cool, and it still is a big deal.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
We'll keep growing as we keep doing it. So.
Yeah, this is when I opened up the 2 races that I have open now, and obviously looking to do more. It wasn't because I was expecting to double. I wasn't looking to double numbers. This wasn't like okay, let's make this race bigger. Oh, I know how we can do that. This was not that answer, and I knew that. As I said, I'm going in there. This was not. This is more about again, it was making availability and accessibility and saying hey, this is out there and you can do that. And when I met you that first time and I saw the team, they were all coming in. I think I saw them as they were coming in. I met you a little bit later on because I wandered over to the booth to say hi. But I saw them coming in as they were finishing, and I'm just like, why haven't I seen more adaptive racers? I guess maybe you just answered the question, but just in general, right? Why are there not more races that have them? Why don't we have some more? So wanted to ask those questions and then started the ball rolling over here.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's comes down to it's just not thought about, right? There's no one coming in and asking hey, why can't I race my adaptive bike here? I think if that happens, then people like yourselves are super into making that happen. But getting ahead of that and making it happen before people are like, hey, why can't I race in this? Is really cool and shows other folks that it's possible relatively easily, right? Like,
Yeah.
especially if you have an organization that can kind of handle getting athletes there or helping with that side of it, just being like, hey, the race is open.
Yep.
We made one little change to the course. Then and it's super doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's transition since we're talking about the races. So, not sure exactly out the top of my head now when we will drop this recording, but it'll be probably sometime in May. I think we're looking at and kind of before Big Woody, basically.
Cool.
Something that we can so talking about Big Woody. So we've got Big Woody coming up in June, which will be the next one that we have with the. I'm hoping that we get the team out again.
Yeah.
And anyone else who's not on the team, by all means, open for everybody to come in as well. Talk about a little bit. So you got a chance to get up there for me since I'm down here and can't always get up to Flagstaff. But you rode the course last year, knew the trails already, but you kind of did my loop just to kind of be sure. Talk about that experience and what it's like to go out. We've asked you a little bit about some of the scouting stuff, but what's it like to go out and the eyes that you need to see or to use when you're out there looking for and scouting a potential course or potential excursion?
Totally, yeah. For adaptive bikes, going on a trail, you're kind of, like their bikes are so much lower to the ground, and so kind of thinking about from that lower perspective, like how something might look. So like how, like if there's a steeper drop off, like getting lower and seeing how that looks. I don't necessarily do that too much anymore, but the main deal is width and camber of the trail.
Right.
So our bikes at the widest point is 36 inches, and so. Like I have a shoestring that I'll bring out.
Okay.
And I'll just check the width and see if that's gonna work for the bikes. I think it's important to have a rider, someone like Phil, to come out and ride the trails and see, or just feel it out and see how it goes. Yep. But yeah, I'm looking for pinch points for the bikes. I'm looking for spots where the bikes are gonna flip. I'm looking for really steep climbs that the bikes are gonna get stuck on. And I'm just kind of thinking about like all of the things that can make this race as independent as possible and where the bike just needs assistance. Just kind of inevitable with the engineering of the bikes at the time.
Right.
And so, I'm just kind of looking about like where is someone absolutely going to need help. Like there might be someone with a higher level skill that could get through it.
Yep.
But like if there's, we try to get our racers to come out and pre-ride the course. So we try to schedule that for everyone so they can see the course, see where it's going to affect them and where they're going to have trouble. And that's kind of it. Just kind of looking at it from the, like how the bikes work and where they're going to get stuck or tip over.
I hear you. Yeah. It's pre-riding is good for everybody, right? I think that's generally pre-riding the course. Every racer is kind of usually encouraged to get out there. A quick side note, as you said it, because I think when I first, I think maybe everybody too. I don't want to put everyone into my head, but when I first thought about adaptive wheelchairs, you think about in sports and racing, the road racers, right? Yeah. And they're all manual for the most part that I'm aware of. I don't know if you might know better than I. Are there any Boston marathons or marathons out there that have adaptive categories that have an e-assist bike, or are they all still kind of in the manual?
I think they're also in the manual. That's like totally out of my realm of expertise, so I have no idea.
Okay.
But I guess we'll leave it there. I have no idea.
I'll ask a follow up because it's in my head, and if it's not one that you can go for, but do you know why in the sense of the mountain biking, they went more e-assist? Now, obviously, there's different terrains. It's not, but you could have a marathon that's got a steep hill too. So I don't know if there's any insight that you have as to why e-assist became more popular. Is it just the terrain and the dirt and stuff like that?
I think, I don't know this answer either, but my guess would be like I've ridden with a guy that still doesn't use a battery, and you're basically going at walking pace. So you're going at 3 miles an hour, 4 miles an hour, and you could maybe do like a 6 mile ride if you're fit. And
this is just rolling the wheel. He's got
he's got like hand crate. His is a kneeling bike.
Yep.
And you pedal in the center. But any of the bikes that we have can be bought without e-assist.
Okay.
But it's just a lot of work. And those marathon folks, I would assume they're still just pushing themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's just like a whole another level right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure that's not the only bike that's out there. I'm sure there's some that might be a hand crank style as well. I'm sure they're not discriminating against anyone either, right? Because as we said, there's so many different disabilities and like kind of the level even within the same disability where like you could or could not use some of those. But I think it's just like the picture in my mind. You see those guys when that category takes off and they're just they're all just hauling ass, like just pushing that wheel, and then you see them afterwards because they're kind of hunched over, so you don't really get a sense to see their body, and then their shoulders and arms are enormous, right? I mean, so they can maintain that road speed in that in those conditions. But obviously, it's a little bit different off road, and that's kind of where I've kind of thought the answer was along those lines, but I didn't know if you had anything different about that.
No secret insight.
A friend of mine, I don't know if I told this in the story before. If I have, everyone, I apologize. A friend of mine in college, though, he was an engineering major, and he his senior project was an off-road wheelchair.
Yeah, cool.
We were all mountain biking back then too, so I don't know if it came from that, if he was any kind of an instigator in getting that piece, but they worked on and ended up getting a patent for a kind of a gear system for a hand roll, where you could kind of like the gears would you go easier up and downhill, but it was still only if you had to have use of your hands and arms and stuff like that, and did not involve any kind of e-assist, which probably wasn't a thing at all on any bike at that point.
It could have also been,
mid-90s.
Yeah, totally. It could have also been that bikes were just getting e-assist.
True.
And so they're like, oh, let's add this. Like road bikes, yes, you can get e-assists, adaptive bikes as well. Yeah. But like those manual chairs, I don't think those are e-assist. But I think like bikes were just heading in that direction, and it's a huge game changer for an adaptive rider to use the e-assist. Yeah.
Very nice. So what's up next for the team? Do you have anything already scouted out for them, other races? Hopefully, again, Big Woody. So we'll kind of say hopefully, and they're, of course, invited. We can talk more about that later. But what do you have? Any other programs for the team right now?
Not for the team. We just kind of finished our winter, so we're building our race schedule and program right now.
Gotcha.
I think you guys are our first race.
Cool.
And I would love to take the crew to Crested Butte for the Adaptive Mountain Bike World Championship this year. It's kind of going to be a self-fund, like everybody's got to throw in type trip.
Okay.
And then, some Bean Peak days. Okay. Any mountain bikers listening that want to get a tow up at Bean Peak, we're looking for volunteers, and that's how we're going to do it. Is we're going to tow people up with their e-bikes. And
sign up now.
Can all ride. Yeah. Look us up, and there's a Navajo mountain bike festival coming up in a couple weeks actually, in Window Rock, and so I'm bringing the trailer out there, hopefully get some racers to come and talk about their bikes, but still kind of in our shoulder season, and should be coming out with all of our schedules in the next couple weeks here.
All right.
Yeah.
I know, since I met you at Tour to White Mountains, that has an adaptive category in there. I believe Stevie has a adaptive group for his Bear Jaw group.
Yeah.
Correct?
Oh, yes, we will be doing Bear Jaw, and then he also is doing a gravel race near the Grand Canyon that he made. And he made us an adaptive loop for that as well.
Fantastic.
So we'll definitely do yours, Bear Jaw Groove, and Tour the White Mountains.
Okay.
It's like, I think we're kind of gonna stick with those 3 races right now.
Okay.
And we'll talk and hopefully your winter races as well.
Sure.
As it cools down here.
Yeah.
And just kind of like work on building our team and figuring out how we're going to do trainings and bring other people in. Because like I said, if we're not able to let people use our bikes, we need to figure out who's going to be here and who can participate. Right?
Sure.
And so, we're just kind of figuring all that stuff out. It's all pretty new, and so just kind of figuring out what the structure is going to look like.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So aside from racing, what about just excursions? What do you have coming up on the calendar for anything biking or? We'll start with biking. How about that?
Well, I've got a good bike one for everybody. Okay. So April 19th from 10 to 2. I think it's actually going to go till 3 p.m. We have our Bike Fest. So we're celebrating 10 years as a nonprofit.
Nice.
And there will be Absolute Bikes is doing full suspension e-bike, mountain bike demos.
Okay.
You can come and try our adaptive bikes. There will be a cash-only taco truck.
Okay.
There will be raffle items from Rogue Panda and a bunch of other cool raffle gifts that you can donate, and just come and check out our programming and see what we're doing. So that's a big one. This might not be out by that by April 19th.
I don't know if it will be, but it's all right. Hopefully, if it's not out, then hopefully y'all went. And
hopefully you loved it.
Tell in case we can get it out there, and if not, we can certainly put it out on just social media to help boost it. But it's the 19th. You said where? And
April 19th. Oh yeah, Fort Tuthill, Maricopa Ramada. There'll be signs up. Okay. And if this is after that, I hope you enjoyed it.
Very good.
And then besides that, volunteer training's coming up in May. We've got our first, we have these series called Ride and Rows. We partner with all the adaptive sports programs in the area.
Okay. And
we do kayaking and biking at lakes all over Arizona for like $10, and people can bring, and they get lunch and bring family members. And those are really fun events. Yeah. So I think our first one's like May 21st at Watson Lake in Prescott.
Nice.
And then we've got our first San Juan River trip in June. Okay. End of June. So that's going to be fun. And then we're just going to be biking and kayaking and hanging out all summer long.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And by that, you just mean just like, hey, let's go for a ride type of days, right?
Yeah.
Not so much a formal, let's, make an event of it, but like, hey, let's, you and me and call some, 3 other people and go.
Exactly. Yeah. Group rides, anyone that I went on a ride today with a buddy on our adaptive bikes because he wanted to go out and I was coming down for this. So it's let's go on a ride before.
Fun.
And so, trying to do those more loosey-goosey rides with volunteers and other adaptive riders that have their own stuff. And we'll do partner with some local places up there and just do some easy street futz rides, that type of stuff as well. So
well, I have to say, going back to what you said about the demos on the 19th, you allowed me to demo a couple of different bikes last year at Big Woody. So once again, thank you, because it was a blast. Anybody who has the opportunity to get in on one of these events where there are demos available, I highly recommend it. I mean, not only does it give you a chance to ride and experience what the disabled athletes, have to, deal with in their bikes, because it's not just as simple as hopping on a bike. But if you're an adventurer, it is kind of fun. I mean, it's different, right? It's a different kind of thing. It's it's like jumping on getting on a 4-wheeler or getting on a dirt bike, right? It's a different type of a ride. So there's a bit of adventure in it, in the sense of it's something new. I was obviously demoing, and hopefully, again, anyone listening is doing the same thing, demoing. So you treat it like a true demo. Like, you're not going to just jump it off of the nearest drop. So you're taking good care of it, but you want it's something a little bit different. So where can you kind of push it? And you're allowing, you're telling me hey, do this, go a little bit faster, hit that corner, and you can kind of see and lean into it and kind of learn the things. How often do you do that kind of thing where it's the demos is available for anybody who wants to check it out?
Not too often. Yeah. We want to do we want to do it there's a balance, right? It's a piece of equipment that's used for folks with disabilities, but I think it's so important for able-bodied folks to ride them and see what it feels like, especially if you're in the profession of trail building or giving guided rides or racing, or to have that different perspective of how this bike interacts on a trail versus an upright bike, I think is a cool experience for people to have. And it's simply also pretty cool and fun to try. But it gives you a really good perspective of thinking about trails in a different way.
I think you did 2 or 3. I don't recall now exactly how many, but one of them was the kneeling one, which was definitely the most
similar.
Actually, I was going to say more uncomfortable in the sense of new, something that you really have to it's something different. It's not just, okay, I'm on 4 wheels and I'm still kind of steering. It's, kind of a similar process, but it was definitely because you had to lean forward into the chest plate. So it was just, for me, that one, and it wasn't uncomfortable in the sense of uncomfortable. It's just different. A whole new set of I've got to do this and this and move my body in different ways, or leave my body kind of positioned in a different way.
Yeah.
So that was definitely different.
Yeah. There's seatbelts on those suckers.
Yeah. For a reason. For a reason. Okay, so outside of demos, how can any able-bodied rider come out and participate? Because you said you are, kind of, you're scouting for volunteers sometimes for these other excursions or races or stuff like that when a support rider is needed. How can someone who might be interested in doing that participate? Where do they go to look, and what can they expect?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the easiest way is just to go onto our website, highcountryadaptive.org. There's a volunteer application to fill out.
Yeah.
Volunteers need to have a fingerprint clearance card or a background check.
Okay.
And we can send a link to have them finish one or to complete one. But we just want people to come and ride with us that are willing to help someone if they've tipped over.
Sure.
We handle all the, the first aid and safety stuff. And then, we're just looking for kind people that want to hang out and ride and maybe help out a little bit. You can come and see us at your races at Big Woody. You can come and we'll have a booth there, hopefully,
yep,
and come check out the bikes and learn more about us. But we're always looking for folks to come and ride with us.
Very cool.
Yeah, we'll do group rides often this summer. Come and escape the heat and come ride with us.
Yeah.
But just reach out and we'll get you set up and come and ride with us.
And
it's really great volunteer hours just to ride your bike.
Yeah.
It all counts. Nonprofit. And just looking for people to help.
And in this case, are drop-ins still kind of welcome? Like if you hear about someone hears about, sees it on social media or sees that there's just a group ride going on, and just show up and ride, and with the expectation of, I'd like to learn more and stuff like that, but
absolutely
not going through the whole, volunteer.
Yeah, you can totally come and observe. And just come ride with us and see how it goes.
Would there be a limitation at that point? Would they not be asked to help out if there was, or if they're there to quote unquote volunteer, even though they're not officially?
I got a feeling I'd put them to work.
Okay. Yeah. You wouldn't want to waste anyone's time who really wants to, do the volunteer piece, but people, sometimes just, they forget there's a form I needed to fill out.
Right. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, we love meeting people. So if they sometimes it is hard to get past that form.
Right.
So come and see what we do and make sure that you're into it. And then we can do the paperwork after that.
Great.
Yeah.
And a great point too. A lot of us need volunteer hours completed for one reason or another. It could be school. It could be some sort of a civics program that you're in that requires it. It could be who knows, any number of things. So volunteer hours and you're riding your bike is not too shabby.
Not too bad. Yeah, better than picking up trash on the highway, right?
Right. Exactly. All right. So the race team's shaping up. Hopefully we'll see them all out. So let's just say 99% sure we'll see them all out at Big Woody.
There'll be at least a few at Big Woody. So
Very
we'll
good.
see how big we can get it. But
awesome. What else can you tell us about what the summer is happening? You gave us a couple. Anything else that you missed or anything that you wanted to add?
I don't think so. It's still kind of early. I wish I had more info to give you guys.
I hear you.
But I think we'll be doing group rides at least every other week.
Okay.
Might be weekly.
Yeah.
And then we will be doing some Grand Canyon rides too. So they'll be pretty simple kind of pavement rides, maybe to Shoshone Point or something like that.
Gotcha.
But we got a little bit of funding to do some rides out there. So keep an eye out for those, and follow us on the social medias and support in any way that you can.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Anyone that's good. What is the social media that they would look for? What's the
Facebook is High Country Adaptive Sports. Instagram is highcountry_adaptive.
Okay.
Those are the ones that we use.
Yeah.
Website highcountryadaptive.org.
Okay.
And just follow us, and
very cool.
if you want to come help out, we'd love to have you.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, how can anyone follow you? Are you? I know that you are. How active? Are you very active on Instagram?
Social media. I'm most active on Instagram.
Okay. How can people find you if they want to look for you?
It's just Truman Shoaff, all one word. So.
Okay.
Last
try to
name.
get you a couple more followers after this.
Yeah. I'll have waves of really enjoying it and sharing stuff, and then I'll be like, I want nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
But I've got a public account, so I'd love to have you follow me. I post stuff with work and racing and other adventures that I go on, mostly in the disability community world.
Sure.
Some of my dogs. So
we all love dogs here too, I should say. Most of us anyway. Well, good. Truman, thanks for coming out today. Thanks for talking about all of your exciting stuff, as well as high country adaptive, because there's some pretty cool things going on there. Look for the race team at your local Arizona races, and potentially some other ones outside, and maybe not the team, but excursions at least.
Yeah.
And maybe in a couple of years we'll see the team even hit some of the bigger ones in the region. Not just Arizona.
I'd love to.
Yeah, that'd be very cool. All right. Thank you everyone for listening to this episode. We hope you all come back, and depending on when we do drop this, I hope you had a great time at the open house on the 19th. And if it's before, better get out to the open house on the 19th. Fort Tuttle, 10 to possibly 3.
Yeah.
All
sorry,
right.
Bad at times.
Very good. We'll see you all next time. Thanks.